For more than 30 years now, there's been this one sound, a sound that's just massive, totally electric, and you just can't deny it. It's the sound of a duo who grabbed the raw, sweaty energy of the 90s rave scene and shot it straight into the mainstream. Yep, we're talking about the story of the Chemical Brothers. So what's with the number 6? Well, that's how many Grammy Awards these guys have taken home. It's a pretty big testament to how they've kept innovating decade after decade. But honestly, those awards, they're only scratching the surface of their story. Because really, this is what they did. This was their superpower. They were pioneers. They went deep into the underground, grabbed sounds from big beat, techno, and house, and somehow forged them into these massive, stadium-sized anthems that an entire generation grew up on. So who are the masterminds behind all this glorious noise? That would be Tom Rowlands and Ed Simons. And their story isn't your typical rock and roll cliche. Nope. This is the story of two history students who just happened to meet at university and bonded over a shared obsession with these wild, revolutionary new sounds. All right, so how did it all kick off? Well, for that, we have to go back to Manchester, and to a brand new genre that was about to take the whole world by storm, big beat. So what even is big beat? Well, think of it like this amazing musical cocktail. You take the heavy, funky drum breaks from old-school hip-hop, you mix in the relentless pulse of techno, and then you splash in a whole lot of rock and roll attitude. The result? Something loud, something heavy, and something built to make huge crowds lose their minds. Okay, picture this. It's 1989. Tom and Ed meet at university, and they are completely obsessed with Manchester's legendary music scene, especially the iconic Hacienda nightclub. They start DJing together under the, let's be honest, amazing name 237 Turbo Nutters. And here's the kicker. They only started making their own music out of pure necessity because they kept running out of instrumental tracks that fit their DJ sets. So that's how it started, by solving a problem. So these early experiments as producers, well, they took off. And pretty soon, they were forging a whole new identity and working on an album that would become an absolute landmark for 90s electronic music. Now, here's a fun fact. They weren't always the Chemical Brothers. They actually started out as the Dust Brothers, kind of a tribute to the American producers who worked with the Beastie Boys. But, the original Dust Brothers weren't too happy about that, so they had to change it, and the Chemical Brothers was born, inspired by one of their own early tracks, Chemical Beats. And from there, things just moved at light speed. I mean, their first track drops in '92, and just 3 years later, their debut album, Exit Planet Dust, is out. By the way, that title? A super clever little nod to their name change. It went on to sell over 1 million copies, and basically announced to the world that a new force in music had arrived. But get this, it wasn't some overnight fairy tale success. Their very first single was actually rejected by record shops for being too slow. Can you believe it? It took the legendary DJ Andrew Weatherall to really champion the track and get it noticed. It just goes to show, when you're creating something new, most people won't get it at first. Okay, so they've got their sound, they've got their name. What's next? Well, the next phase was just total domination. This is the moment the Chemical Brothers went from being underground heroes to full-on, chart-topping superstars. And this was the album that did it. Their second record, Dig Your Own Hole, didn't just sell well. It blasted straight to #1 in the UK. This was the album that proved electronic music wasn't just for clubs. It could be album rock, with all the same cultural weight and commercial power. And you can't talk about that album without talking about block rock and beats. This description from Enemy is just perfect. It so captures that visceral, overwhelming physical power of the track. You can almost feel that, right? And of course, that's the song that won them their very first Grammy. And the critics were all on the same page. The dance music Bible Mix Mag gave the album a perfect 10 out of 10, and they nailed the reason why. It was this incredible balancing act. It was wild and experimental enough to be exciting, but also slick and polished enough to be played absolutely everywhere. A huge part of their genius was their knack for collaboration. I mean, they worked with Britpop royalty like Noel Gallagher, who, and this is a great story, recorded his vocals for the #1 hit, Setting Sun, in a single night. They brought in hip-hop legends like Q-Tip, post-punk icons like Bernard Sumner. They were just effortlessly bridging these musical worlds that almost never mixed. But here's the thing about these guys. They never stood still. So you've conquered the charts. Now what? Well, if you're the Chemical Brothers, you start expanding your universe, and you prove your music can work in completely new places.
So in 2011, they scored the entire soundtrack for the thriller Hanna, and it was just a perfect fit. Their driving, percussive sound was made for the movie's intense action scenes. It earned them tons of praise and brought their music to a whole new audience.
And then there's their live show. Anyone who's seen them knows it's a full-on sensory assault with these mind-bending visuals. They captured that spectacle in the concert film Don't Think. And get this, it was the first concert film ever to be mixed in full 7.1 surround sound. They literally wanted to put you right in the middle of the crowd. So how do you top that? Well, how about the Olympics? In 2012, they composed Velodrome, the official theme for the cycling events at the London Summer Games. This wasn't just another track. This was them being cemented as national treasures. So when you step back and you look at the whole 30-year career, what do you see? It's really a story of constant, relentless innovation and just this incredible, enduring legacy of success. You can actually trace their whole evolution just by looking at their Grammys. I mean, they won their first one in 1998 for Best Rock Instrumental, which shows you how hard it was to even categorize them back then. And then they were still winning Best Dance Album over 20 years later in 2020. That kind of sustained excellence is just, it's so rare. And the numbers are just staggering. 10 studio albums. 6 of them have hit #1 in the UK. And through it all, they have never, ever stopped experimenting, never stopped pushing what their sound could be, from the very beginning right up to today. Which, it all leads to this final question, right? After all these years, what is their most important legacy? Is it the awards, the #1 albums, or is it something else? Is it that feeling you get when you hear one of their tracks for the first time on a truly massive sound system? Maybe their greatest legacy isn't something you can measure. Maybe it's just the sound itself, a sound that's electrified millions and, let's face it, continues to rock the planet.